you. We thank God that He has allowed you to reign over this nation for the next 5 years. And we want to thank God also for the Supreme Court Justice and the CJ for the unanimous decision. It makes it easier for the Kenyans to move on. And we want to say to all Kenyans that Kenya Kwanza government will not be just for the Kenya Kwanza supporters. It is a government for all the Kenyans. So do not feel left out as a Kenyan. Our doors are open. You belong here. We pray that there will be peace from now going forward. And don't feel as though you are not part of the incoming government. You are part of the Kenya Kwanza government. If you are Kenyan, we love you. We want you in, and we want to work together with everybody. We thank the judiciary led by the CJ for the great work they have done. They have done these proceedings in a very excellent, ethical and professional manner. The lawyers have conducted themselves very well, and we know that the democracy space in Kenya is growing, and together as a nation we can develop. Together as a nation we can concentrate on the issues that are affecting mwananchi. So it will be bottom-up economy for everybody. It will be a new season for everyone, and we believe we will grow together. Asanteni, God bless you. We will have our council say a word. Gatia, thank you. Gatia advocate, say something.
Yes, habari yenu. Yes, the client, the president-elect, will be making a statement later. Mine is just to say it's been a very, very engaging period, and we are thankful it has now ended. The time for court cases has ended. The time to assemble a new team has now started. We now move forward as one country and as one people. Asanteni sana.
So you will receive the statement from the President. His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto. Thank you.
So the statement from the legal team representing President-elect William Samoei Arap Ruto, and of course expressing gratitude for the decision from the 7-judge bench, unanimously upholding his victory in the August 9th polls. And a lot more reaction expected here from the legal teams. Now some statement from the legal team representing the former Prime Minister.
Well, are we all right? Yes. First and foremost, I want to thank our team of lawyers. As we know, we are a team of nearly 50 lawyers, and we have been working very hard for the last 14 days, this being the final day. Secondly, we want to thank our clients, the petitioner number 1, Raila Amolo Odinga, petitioner number 2, Martha Karua, and other eminent persons in this team, including Senior Counsel Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, for having their trust and confidence in this team of lawyers to prosecute their case in petition number 5, which has been consolidated with other petitions, and put their case before the Supreme Court. I want to say without a fear of contradiction that we do not agree with the decision of the Supreme Court. Like Al Gore, I will say we accept the decision, but we do not agree with it. And I'm saying this as a seasoned practitioner that courts sometimes make mistakes which have to be corrected over time. Courts make political decisions. As you know, in the United States of America, there has been a long-standing case that has been held as universal truth of jurisprudence involving women's rights, Roe versus Wade. It took them 50 years to overturn that case, because of a Republican Congress and a Republican president and a Supreme Court that was basically appointed by Republicans. And therefore, I want to say, yes, in accordance with the law, we got to accept this decision as the law of the land. But I think it is a very ideological decision. I think there are a lot of what was said in the judgment, and we'll have time when that judgment comes out to put out a critique. But all it means is that in our jurisprudence, the petitioners will always have a big burden to carry when you have an electoral commission which is not open and transparent. The best way for this court to have made a decision was with the servers to be fully opened and all the election materials be placed before the court, as would happen in a case where justice has to be rendered. As you know, and I am saying this again without fear of contradiction, we wanted a comprehensive audit of not only the technology that was applied by the Electoral Commission, but we wanted a proper audit. Although time was of the essence, but I think we had sufficient time to carry out a proper audit, including looking at the issue of the foreign intruders, the Venezuelans, which you'd notice the court avoided in making any comment about those intrusions and invasions of the system, the technology, the IT structure. That again, the court did not refer to, but probably in the judgment, the recent judgment that is coming on the 21st, they will say something about it. And therefore, I want to end by saying the rule of law should prevail. The court normally has the last word in making a statement as to what is the law of the land. But as citizens who are sovereign, we're entitled to disagree, and disagree very vehemently. I think the court, in conducting the proceedings during the hearing, I think they were patient. They listened to us. It is only the outcome that we do not agree with. Finally, I think our clients, the two petitioners, Raila Amolo Odinga and Martha Karua, may be addressing another press conference, but we are happy to talk to you on this issue.
And a watertight case, but we saw them talking about forgeries and wild goose chase. Did that surprise you?
No, I mean forgeries. When the DCI, the Director of Criminal Investigations, what we put before the court, a lot of it was from an agency of government. I didn't see them talking about similar incidents in matters concerning the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. That's why I was saying it was a little ideological. They were looking for things on which to destroy our case, but similarly not taking sufficient time to look at what happened on the other side. And that will be another story for another day.
Would you admit you might not have been well prepared for this case?
We were very well prepared. I think compared to 2017, we were a lot more well prepared.
What would be the 2 or 3 points of mistake that you say the court might have made mistake on that?
In 50% plus 1, I think they were ideological. We are using the baseline of total registered voters in the land as against those who turned out to vote. If you read any legal material on what should be a turnout, including the Black's Law Dictionary, turnout is normally based on the registered members in a country as against those who turn out to vote. So there are so many other examples we can take up.
Are you still confident you lost on all grounds?
Yeah?
On all the key 8 issues you lost?
The issues that the court formulated, but we're quite happy to live with it and talk about it another time. Philip, you would want to say something?
Just on the idea that we lost on all 8-9 points, we find it incredible that that could be the holding of the court. In more than several of those cases, we had overwhelming evidence. As my senior counsel, Mr. Orengo, says, the servers were not opened. The involvement of the Venezuelans for a full month before, half a month before the elections and up to the 16th of August was not explained. No, it wasn't even offered. We perhaps are a little distressed on the over-reliance of a registrar's report that has no input from us. That report was completely silent on the failure to open the servers. The servers, we repeat, the servers have all the answers. The exact role, we provided evidence that the Venezuelans were downloading documents, creating documents, and generating documents. None of that was touched. But as my colleague says, we hope they'll address all this in the final judgment. As somebody has said, it's incredible that we could lose on all points and they could win on all points. But as Senior has explained, it's probably the ideological aspect of this judgment.
Are you still confident on the 21st it will be a different ruling?
No. They have tied their hands. They can't get out of it. They have given their final decision. It's now a question of them finding the reasons for those findings and justifying them. It's not always easy, but I think they have some time to do it.
The other thing that I found a little bit disturbing is the presentation of the Form 34A by somebody I really respect as an advocate, Julie Soweto. It was described as hot hair, but you could see when that evidence was being adduced before the court, how engaged even the justices were. So I found it rather odd for them to describe it as hot air. I think that's why I'm saying this is ideological, because they would have said on the evidence presented, we find there was more weight as to the evidence which was adduced by the other side. But to say that it was hot air and it was a document coming from the Electoral Commission, I found it very, very disturbing.
If I may explain a little further on that point made by Julie Soweto in the petition, that gentleman, Camargo's name was not supposed to be on Form 34A. If at all he was involved in this election, he was involved on the technology side. So to find it anywhere near a Form 34A raised more questions than answers. There was silence. And of course, on the issue of the famous 34A that Julie was describing, it was found to have been signed by the agents of UDA and UDM on the 7th, which is before the elections. No mention was made of that. So many things, many questions, perhaps more questions than answers, but it is the decision of the court. They have to live with it just as we have. Is that all? Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, that is Philip Murgor. Philip Murgor was part and parcel of the council that were representing the first and the second petitioner, and with James Orengo, who was the lead counsel of the first and second petitioner. The first and second petitioner being Raila Odinga and Martha Karua. They were the main petitioners in the Supreme Court presidential petition of the year 2022. And of course, it is in the public domain that President-elect William Ruto is officially the 5th President of the Republic of Kenya. Will be taking over from the 13th of September, when he will be sworn in as the 5th President, and also Deputy President-elect Rigathi Gachagua will be the second presidential, or rather the second Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. It is the first time that someone has actually attempted to get the presidential election, and actually he has won. And it is the first time that a first-time member of parliament has actually attempted to be a running mate to one of the candidates and has actually become the second deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. Issues argued there. And the final orders issued by the court, it was a unanimous decision that the presidential petition filed before it in 2022, it has actually been dismissed, and the petition, those who had everyone to bear the cost, those were the orders that were issued by the Chief Justice Martha Koome. This is the second time that the court, this is the third time actually that the court is upholding presidential election, the first being in 2013 by the Chief Justice then, Willie Mutunga, and the second being in 2017, the second, or rather the repeat presidential election that was upheld by David Maraga after the repeat election on 26th of October 2017. And for that time, the new Chief Justice, who is barely an year in office, has actually taken over, or rather has actually upheld another election. That is the election of the Deputy President William Ruto as now the fifth president. I'm joined by my colleague Muremi Mwangi. Of course, Muremi Mwangi, you have been following keenly what has been happening. 9 issues that were to be determined by the court. And from the 9 issues, if I'm not wrong, all of them, the respondents seems to have carried the day, and I've actually heard Philip Murgor say that it wouldn't have been possible that they were wrong on all the issues. What's your take from how we have actually seen from this?
Well, speaking to the legal team representing the former Prime Minister in this particular petition, part of their concern, of course, is what you're saying, that unanimously they have lost on all 8 substantive issues, and therefore, as a matter of default from the 8 on issue number 9, which was the reliefs and the orders that they had sought, they've been all rejected across the 8 issues. And therefore, what they are saying is they are waiting for the substantive judgment, which is expected in 21 days, and it's from that particular judgment that a proper conversation within the legal team in terms of the analysis of the court's determination of the issues is going to be sought. But beyond that, there is also expected a separate communication from the Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate and his running mate, Martha Karua, because they are saying these being the petitioners, they hold the final communication on the political direction of the coalition heading forward. But from a legal perspective, speaking to Senior Counsel James Orengo and the rest of the legal team, they are saying they do not agree with the decision, but they respect it as a matter of principle, and they are giving some sort of analogy or comparison with a separate set of law which was unchallenged, was challenged perpetually but not overturned in the United States, and they are saying that happened for 50 years. So they are saying the Kenyan Supreme Court does not operate in isolation. They do not agree with the decision. However, they respect it, and it will be a foundation for future conversations on electoral reforms in Kenya.
Right, and talking about, before we hand over, talking about matters to do with politics, this is a very, it's going to go into history because, of course, Raila Odinga, 77 years old, I don't really think maybe he'll try out again in 2027. Again, William Ruto, for the first time, a deputy president or a vice president is attempting the top position and actually has managed to capture it. And again, one-term member of parliament has been the running mate and have actually now is the second in command. I think in matters history, what would you say about these happenings that have just happened in the 2022 election?
Well, in politics, they say nothing happens by accident, and assuming it even happens by accident, it will always be presumed to have been planned to happen that way. And in any case, there was expected an outcome in this election. But what will be interesting to watch, actually, is the progression beyond this, both for the Kenya Kwanza coalition led by the president-elect, as well as the Azimio la Umoja that now firmly assumes the role of the official opposition in parliament. We know that President Uhuru Kenyatta has gazetted Thursday as the day for the first sitting for the National Assembly and the Senate, and we expect some sort of direction from the former Prime Minister when he speaks later today in his reaction to this judgment now, because much of the spotlight and attention goes into preparations for the swearing in of President-elect William Ruto as the fifth President of the Republic of Kenya, and Rigathi Gachagua as the second deputy president under the 2010 constitution. Therefore, much of the spotlight now shifts to the work of oversight to this government that is coming in here. And one of the critical litmus tests, of course, will be the unity of the opposition, given the numbers that the Kenya Kwanza coalition has been able to marshal, and the fact that quite a huge chunk of the numbers from Azimio have given indication that they might want to go to the side of government. And therefore, therein comes the critical test for the Odinga side as we await the comprehensive version of the judgment from the Supreme Court in 21 days.
And finally, there are some terms that were used by the Chief Justice, like the hot air, when referring to the evidence that was put across by Julie Soweto as the counsel. And yes, and of course, this kind of does it mean maybe the counsel that was representing the petitioners did not anticipate that the court would have maybe moved with such kind of terms in their arguments?
Well, the legal team representing the former Prime Minister have just expressed their displeasure here about the selection of language that was used by the judges. But I also put a question to them regarding their state of preparedness for this particular petition. And they argue that they were very well prepared, and partly what takes them aback is that they lost on all the issues that the court had listed for determination. But of course, it now goes back to the bench of the 7 judges to demonstrate and illustrate to the country why certain evidence that was adduced before them is hot air or a wild goose chase. Now, that of course is going to come out in the comprehensive version of the judgment, and that's when we can authoritatively now find why they found certain sections of the evidence adduced by the petitioners to be hot air or a wild goose chase.
And our elections, of course, having had such kind of a law that if you lose, you have the opportunity to file a petition. Could we say that from the perspective of that if you are dissatisfied, you can have the opportunity to file the case? Does it mean that our democracy has actually changed totally? And also, if I would use Raila Odinga, could we say that he has really helped to change the way our elections are conducted? Because we realize that even as they kept using examples of a petition, or rather a precedent set of a petition that was filed by Raila Odinga in matters to do with presidential election. Could we say that we are headed to the best democracy in Africa and maybe probably the world?
Well, perpetually you can say post-2013 heading up until now, there has been what you might call a gradual enrichment of our jurisprudence on matters of election law. And you know, the petitioner consistently has been Raila Odinga, save for one petition that followed the repeat election of the 26th of October 2017. But over and above that is the political context upon which the contest happened, the election itself, as well as the petition here. If you remember in 2017, in the build-up to his decision to go to the Supreme Court, there was an outright rejection of the results, punctuated with mass action, and he continuously said that it's not his time to accept and move on. And even at the point when he was filing the petition, he said, well, we're going to file the petition, but this time we won't accept and move on. But eventually the decision came. He rejected the call to go back to the repeat election with the same IEBC commission, and therefore boycotted the election. This time round, we saw him reject the outcome of the results, give a comprehensive statement and say he's going to pursue a recourse through the legal mechanisms. He came to the Supreme Court. The hearing has been quite peaceful, even within his traditional political basis. And here the statement coming from his legal team that they may not agree with the decision, but they respect it. And of course, you could say it has set some sort of stage in intonation in what we expect from him and his running mate when they address the country a bit later today. But it's also an interesting stage in terms of growth of this. If I take you back to 2017, when the Supreme Court nullified President Uhuru Kenyatta's re-election, Wafula Chebukati, as the commission chair, was quick enough to go back to the same Supreme Court, seek an advisory opinion on the election process. Because you remember the 2017 nullification was on the basis of the process itself, so that he knows the finality of the results. Is the result final at the constituency, the polling station, or the national tallying center? And an advisory was given. And that is the basis upon which he did what he did this time round. And of course, from the determination of the judges here, you would expect that in future elections, this also becomes a critical reference point for whatever electoral body that will be overseeing the future elections.
Right. Thank you, Muremi Mwangi. We've been with Muremi Mwangi here, looking at issues to do with the ruling that has just been rendered by the 7-judge bench, and maybe to just take you through some of the issues that have been tackled and what was the opinion, or rather the orders, the findings of the court. The first one being whether the technology deployed met the standards of integrity, security, and transparency. Of course, the 7-judge bench unanimously said that the petitioners could not show or prove that indeed there was the system, or rather the technology deployed by the commission did not meet those the set targets of security and matters to do with transparency. And of course, again, matters to do with interference. Also, it was dismissed that the respondents did not persuade the judges that indeed there was interference of the Form 34A in uploading and transmission of the same. And also, you recall that the polling, about 41 polling stations, there was a recount and retallying, and that came about after they said that the petitioners alleged that the Form 34A that was issued to the agents, and that was issued or rather was taken to the National Tallying Center, and the one that was in the portal, they were different. From the retelling, the judges have found out that there was some, they were almost similar, all of them, the 3 of them that were issued out. So this is just some of the issues that they talked about, and also the issue to do with the commission being split. Of course, there was a faction led by the IBC chair, Wafula Chebukati, and there was another faction led by the vice chair, Juliana Cherera, the 4 commissioners who had been appointed to replace the 4 who had resigned earlier on. And the court said that the sovereignty of the Kenyan people cannot be interfered with by the split by the commission, and they cannot subject the voters into the quorum hitch that could have hit the commission. Said that the sovereignty of the people stands, and of course, meaning that about 14 million Kenyans that wake up in the morning to go and vote there, they are the ones who held the sovereignty. They have the sovereignty, and so the judges could not have interfered with that. Those are just some of the issues that were raised and were handled by the court. About 9 issues, and from all that, it seems the Kenya Kwanza, who are the respondents, as well as the IEBC, who are answering to some of these allegations, they have actually won. And that means that on the 13th of September, we are going to be having President-elect William Ruto being sworn in as the 5th President of the Republic of Kenya, all the way to 2027. Now, focus will be shifting to the committee that will be handling the swearing in meetings. That's the Assumption of Office of the President Committee that is led by the head of the public service, that's Joseph Kenywa. And of course, again, away from the Assumption of Office, we are going to be looking forward to the political direction that the President Uhuru Kenyatta will be taking, as well as Raila Odinga, Martha Karua, and those who are in the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya coalition, which direction they are going to be taking, and how the political landscape will be shaping even as we move forward with work. Again, the test and the task remains with the President-elect William Ruto to ensure that he has fulfilled his promises to the Kenyan people. Remember his statement of bottom-up. We'll be keen to follow up to see how it's going to be going. But for now, I want to head all the way to Uasin Gishu County. This is actually the perceived stronghold of the President-elect in Eldoret. Elvis Kosgei is on standby to just give us a feel of what is happening. Of course, celebrations have been broke out there. Let's hear what he has for us. Elvis, over to you.
Naam, Daniel Kariuki, katika kaunti ya Uasin Gishu, mamia ya wakazi kutoka mbali na karibu tayari wamemiminika mjini Eldoret ili kusherehekea ushindi wa rais mteule, naibu wa rais William Ruto, ambaye katika siku za hivi karibuni atakuwa anaapishwa rasmi na kuwa rais wa 5 wa taifa hili. Wenyeji wamesubiri hapa tangia mvua ikunye, na lakini kwa kufikia sasa bado kuna shamra shamra, na si mji wa Eldoret tu, bali ni katika maeneo ya Sugoi, maeneo ya Kamagut, ambapo ndo chimbuko la naibu wa rais William Ruto, rais mteule, alikozaliwa yapata mwaka 1966. Kwa hiyo hawa wakazi tu hii leo wameminika mjini Eldoret, wanafurahia, na nitazungumza tu na baadhi yao nisikie maoni ni vipi. Naona kwamba watu wamefurahia kabisa.
Sana. Kwa majina naitwa Nicholas Koech, na mimi leo nimefurahi sana kwa the 5th Dr. William Ruto kukuwa declared na kotini tumeona wafanya kazi mzuri, na pia IBC walifanya kazi mzuri sana ambayo ilikuwa transparent worldwide. So sisi kama leo sisi tumefurahi kibaya kabisa no kabisa haogane cheova.
Ongea lugha ya Kiswahili bwana. Naona wakazi hapa naona wameminika. Je, yale ule uamuzi ambao ulitolewa na Supreme Court uko namna gani?
Sisi tumefurahia kabisa uamuzi kwa sababu hiyo kesi ilienda kotini, kulikuwa na hakuna evidence hata kidogo, na ilikuwa manslinging peke yake, lakini sasa sisi tumefurahi sana because hakuna evidence na tumefurahi, na sisi wote tunaambia ile watu wa Kenya mzima tujoin na tufanye kazi kwa amani, fanye pamoja.
Asante sana kaka. Wanakuita nani na unasemaje kuhusiana na uamuzi wa mahakama?
Haya, mimi naitwa David Kipkembo Kipsang, mfanya biashara Eldoret. Kwa ushindi ya William, hiyo tulikuwa natarajia, sababu kulingana na uamuzi ya Chebukati the other time ilikuwa na ushindi mkubwa sana, sababu kwa leo ilikuwa kuconfirm tu ushindi wake, and we are very happy because at least Kenyans wamepata their right and they will be very happy. I assume kabisa people will be very happy in Eldoret and all over the world and Kenya as a whole.
Yes. Masuala gani tata ambayo unaona mahakama ya upeo imeweza kuangamulia hii leo?
Kwa leo mahakama imeonyesha kwamba iko na independence, the independence of the court, High Court na Supreme Court. At least imeonyesha leo wazi ya kwamba haiegemei upande wote, imeangalia the will of the people, na watu najua saa hizo wamefurahi Kenya mzima kulingana na uchaguzi yenye ilifanyika tarehe 9 na leo iko sawa kabisa.
Asante sana. Wacha nioji mzee. Mzee anakuita nani? Mambo yako namna gani?
Maneno iko mzuri sana, na mimi kwa majina mimi naitwa Francis Kiplimo Sukut. Mimi natoka maeneo ya Kaptinga, Simati ambaye ni Eldoret. Sisi tunasema kwamba Mungu si adhumani, na imemwamukia president wetu William Ruto, na kwa sababu amevumilia, Mungu hawezi tupa mtu ya Mungu. Kwa hivyo mimi naambia Ruto, endelea ndugu yangu, endelea kabisa na utujenge Kenya, ndio watu wajue kwamba wewe ulikuwa ni mtu ya ukweli.
Utasemaje kidogo kuhusiana na safari ya rais mteule ambaye mahakama hivi sasa imesema kwamba atakuwa rais wa 5?
Yeye ni mvumilivu, na yeye ni mtu ambayo yeye amevumilia, na hiyo ni mzuri sana, kwa sababu wa Kenya wanataka mtu ambaye akuvumilia, na watu wameona kwamba yeye amefanya kitu njema sana.
Asante sana kaka. Wanakuita nani na una yapi ya kusema siku ya leo?
Kwa majina mimi naitwa Felix Kiprono Kirui, na mambo ambayo nasema siku ya leo ni kwamba tumefurahia sana kwa mambo ambayo majaji wameweza kutoa siku ya leo na kuweza kuhalalisha rais William Ruto kuwa rais wa Kenya. Jambo ambalo tunasema tu ni kwamba rais aweze kutenda kazi na aweze kuenda na manifesto ambayo alikuwa amesema ya Kenya Kwanza, ambayo ni manifesto ambayo ilipendwa na ulimwengu mzima. Tunaomba tu wakutanishe wa Kenya wote, wale waliompigia kura na wale wasiompigia, na aweze kutembea katika Kenya mzima na aweze kufanya maendeleo katika Kenya mzima, ili Kenya irudi kama Kenya ilivyokuwa zamani. Mambo ya siasa ikuishe leo, kazi ifanyike, chuki iishe, wale walikuwa wamekosana wafanye kazi pamoja, na wale wengine ambao walishindwa waweze kubali, kwa sababu asiyekubali kushindwa si mshindani.
Mwisho kabisa, mji wa Eldoret tutasema una mchango gani kwa safari ya rais mteule William Samoei Ruto?
Kuna mchango mkubwa sana ambayo hapa Eldoret imeweza kuchangia kufikia mpaka mbali wakati Ruto amefikia hivi sasa, kwa sababu tukikumbuka mwaka wa 1997 Ruto aliweza kusimama hapa Eldoret kaskazini kama mjumbe, na sio wengi walikuwa wanakubali kwamba anaweza kufaulu. Hata tukikumbuka kwamba aliyekuwa rais Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi alisema kwamba huyu kijana bado mdogo na hawezi kufaulu katika siasa, lakini yeye mwenyewe alisema wacha wananchi wenyewe waamue, na wananchi waliamua, ingawaje kulikuwa na vigogo, lakini aliweza kuwabwaga na akaweza kuwa mjumbe. Mwaka wa 2013 akaweza kufaulu na kuwa deputy president wa Republic of Kenya. 2017 akafaulu na sasa amefaulu kuwa rais. Sasa inaonyesha kwamba hapa Eldoret ni tumemkuza vizuri kabisa na tunajivunia yeye kama rais wa sasa.
Asante sana. Ndio maoni kutoka kwa baadhi ya wakazi wa kaunti ya Uasin Gishu, na kama unavyoona ni shamra mjini Eldoret. Leo ndio wanasema kwamba ile siku ya ndovu kumla mwanawe. Wenyeji wanasema William Samoei Kipchirchir Arap Ruto ambaye alizaliwa hasa katika kijiji cha Kamoret, eneo la Sambut, eneo bunge la Tarbo, kaunti ya Uasin Gishu, basi hii leo amepata labda ile bahati ya kuweza kuongoza taifa na kuwa rais wa 5 hasa katika kipindi ambacho ataapishwa mnamo siku ya tarehe 13. Kwa hiyo ni jambo ambalo tutakuwa tukilifuatilia. Baadaye tutaenda katika nyumbani kwake hasa kule katika eneo la Sugoi, alikadhalika katika eneo la Kamagut, ambapo tutapata rasmi kusikia kutoka kwa majirani wale ambao walisoma naye ili tupate hisia zao hasa kuhusiana na ushindi wa William Samoei Ruto ambaye ndio rais mteule wa taifa hili la Kenya. Basi kutoka kwangu Elvis Kosgei sina la ziada, nitampisha mwenzangu Sofia Wanuna atupe tu tathmini ya mambo halisi hasa katika jiji la Nairobi.
Right, and those are some of the reactions from across the country, especially to the areas that overwhelmingly voted for Dr. William Ruto a few moments after the Supreme Court upheld his win, and the orders that were read by the Chief Justice Martha Koome dismissed the presidential election that was fronted by Raila Odinga and Martha Karua, the running mate for the 2022 election. And the mood in Nakuru County as well as Eldoret, from what we've been able to hear and gather from our colleagues and even see on our screens, 8 celebrations in these areas, including Nyeri County, again, where the Deputy President-elect Rigathi Gachagua again comes from. So we are getting reactions from across the country, and we also heard from the lawyers that led the case, led by Senior Counsel James Orengo. They said that they respect the will and this decision by the Supreme Court judges, but do not agree with the findings. And the Supreme Court unanimously, the judges, dismissing this presidential election that was fronted by 9 petitioners, and 7 of them after 2 struck out. And therefore, the 9 issues that they were looking at addressing, they have agreed that there is not enough proof, for example, that the technology that was used had failed. So the petitioners did not provide enough proof to show that that technology was not simplified as required by the law. The second issue that was on whether there was interference with the uploading and transmission of forms, again, that has been dismissed, and they say that again there was no evidence to show that there was interference with the forms 34A that had been uploaded to the IEBC portal, those that were given to the agents, as well as what was presented at the National Tallying Center, that's at the Bomas of Kenya. And that second petition or issue, again, they have not found any evidence. Unanimously also on the third issue on whether there was a difference, between forms 34A uploaded, and that was the third issue, but whether there was interference was the second issue with the uploading and transmission. They have said that again there is not enough evidence to prove that there was evidence of any interference with the uploading. And so on the other issue on whether the postponement of election in the 8 electoral areas, again there is no evidence and proof that showed that the postponement to the voter or led to the voter suppression. So they have unanimously agreed that Dr. William Ruto was validly elected, and the next thing is for him to be sworn in. Let's now cross over and go back to the Supreme Court of Kenya. We have had a lot of reactions from the legal team that led the respondent side and the petitioner side, agreeing and celebrating by saying those that are opposed to these findings or the verdict, saying that yes, we respect the court, but we do not agree with the findings. We are now joined by my colleague Sophia Onuna. Sophia, we have seen a lot of reactions from the Supreme Court, and even Veronica Maina speaking and saying that they also expect the President-elect, Dr. William Ruto, to address the media. Maybe what more can we gather from that end?
All right, thank you very much, Purity. Indeed, the very heavy activity outside the building here, the Supreme Court, which has been based at the Milimani Law Courts for the purposes of this presidential election petition. There was a flurry of activity following the reading of that verdict and judgment by the President of the Supreme Court, that's Justice Martha Koome. A unanimous decision, Purity, history made in this fourth petition of its kind, that is since the promulgation of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And so we saw the legal team that is led by Fred Ngatia, senior counsel for William Ruto, of course Veronica Maina, who was one of the agents, chief at the Bomas of Kenya, amongst other of their counsel here in a celebratory mood, welcoming that decision of the Supreme Court. Significant because, one, it's unanimous. It means all the 7 judges were agreeable. They all read from the same script. They all agreed on all the 9 issues. That's the other significant thing, that of all the 9 issues, they found against the petitioners and for the respondents. That is both, of course, William Ruto, the president-elect, as well as IEBC and the chairperson. So a huge sigh of relief, vindication for Chebukati. Of course, there was the issue of really the dysfunction in the IEBC. However, the Chief Justice, as she read out that decision, said that the rupture within the Electoral Commission would not be sufficient grounds to overturn the will of the people, which, as it stood, as she went through each of the issues and the evidence adduced, none of the issues had sufficient evidence adduced as to have the election nullified, because those are the only 2 choices between the Supreme Court judges, either to uphold the election as was declared on the 15th of August by Wafula Chebukati in favor of William Ruto, or nullify the election and have the country go back to another repeat election, a runoff within 60 days. Now that is all settled. It is William Samoei Ruto set to be sworn in as the 5th president of Kenya. And it was interesting as these judges read, and of course it was the Chief Justice who read out that what is called an abridged version of their judgment on behalf of the 7-judge bench. The reasoned one, as they call it, the comprehensive one, will be coming later, maybe in a month or 2. We'll wait to see. However, it is some of the very indicting words that were used, especially in respect to some of the evidence that was adduced by the petitioners. We saw Julie Soweto at some point bringing in concerns around what she raised on the Kim's kit, and that some shared the same serial number. But more importantly was the Form 34A and Jose Camargo, who has become a trend even on social media here in Kenya. But we've heard of that, being the pushback from the judges, that in terms of this evidence, the affidavits, especially from John Githongo, from officers of the court, that's counsel Anthony Odenga Ochieng, and also Celestine, again, the judges did not hold back. They did not pull their punches when it came to saying that their act and conduct, especially being lawyers, advocates who operate in court, and to engage in matters to be seen as perjury, to lie, to use forged documentation, that was quite harsh. But on every of the 9 grounds, again, all of them, the court finding in the favor of William Ruto. And remember, this was 7 petitions that had been consolidated. Initially, there were 9, 2 were thrown out. This time around, those 7 consolidated into the 9 issues, which is a huge sigh of relief for William Ruto at 55 years old. On this 5th day of September, he ascends to be the 5th president of the Republic, and his swearing in expected to be next week, Tuesday, because it will be 7 days of the first Tuesday after that result, in fact, is rendered and verdict and decision of the Supreme Court, as we have seen here. And Senior Counsel Jim Sorengo echoing when he spoke after the judgment the words of the Azimio running mate Martha Karua, who has equally tweeted on her verified account saying that we accept the decision but we do not agree. And many, of course, are looking forward to hear what the former Prime Minister and who was the Azimio presidential candidate will have to say as well. But remember, this is his 5th loss in seeking to be president of Kenya, 5th time unlucky. And the decision here rendered today is binding. There is no other appellate option. This is it. It comes here as the first and exclusive and original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. And so it is a done deal. And so the country will then be preparing for the swearing in of William Samoei Ruto, who has been the deputy president for the last 10 years. So ascending from being deputy president to being the president, it is one of those that we've been able to see. The only other, and of course that time was occasioned by death, was the late President Moi. He was vice president when the late Kenyatta passed on, then he ascended. But in terms of competitive politics, this is the first time we are seeing that scenario play out. So this is a time, of course, for reflection. Remember, William Ruto will be coming to lead a country that in terms of how they voted, they are split down the middle. You have about 200,000 was the difference with which he won the election. And so one of the biggest, huge tasks that will face him and he has lying ahead of him is how to be able to come and ensure that Kenyans united are speaking as one in as far as national coherence, I beg your pardon, that we're able to see that. I see Javans Bigambo here who wants to come a quick word with us in terms of just some of the quick feedback on what we saw from the judgment. And let's hear from Javas Bigambo, who's an advocate. Thank you very much for making time for us, Javas. So a unanimous decision, that's huge, and that finding on all 9 issues against the petition and in favor of the respondents. Does this shock you?
Well, I am not quite surprised by the decision of the Supreme Court. And what's also very interesting is that all the prayers that were made by the petitioners, none has been accepted or acceded to by the Supreme Court. Well, some of them, of course, were a bit of an oxymoron. For example, when the 5th petitioner, Honorable Raila Odinga, prayed that the court nullifies the election. Second, that declares him as duly elected president. Third, that the Supreme Court finds that the election process was flawed. All this mix, this kind of pudding, was not very good, and it also shows that there was some kind of lack of clarity or particularity with respect to the petitioner, but also the issue of the weight of the evidence that would have moved the court lacked. Because comparatively, when you look at the ratio of the Supreme Court decision in 2017, the weight of the evidence that was adduced before this court was such that it was weighty and very clear to even any objective observer. And that moved the court. This time around, it has not moved the court at all.
And it should appear from 2017, the IEBC not only prepared for the election, it prepared for a challenge to that election in a presidential election petition, because they were able to disabuse of all the things that were raised by the petitioners blow by blow.
Yes, I think on the part of institutional management of the election by IEBC, they did an impressive job. Though there were some bits of hiccups, and like Justice Martha Koome has indicated that the ruling, the judgment, the full judgment that will come on the 21st, within 21 days, they will give pointers on how the institution of the IEBC can better be reformed for the greater good of proper election management. But what is also clear about this decision is that it has demonstrated that Kenya's judiciary is independent, especially this judgment coming after the BBI judgment by the same court. It has lent credibility to and public trust to the judiciary, but much more, this decision by the Supreme Court has raised the threshold of election nullification, that even if there are certain anomalies or errors, minimal errors alone may not warrant nullification of a presidential election.
Yeah. And the other thing is the judges were quite clear to the extent, especially of some of the affidavits that were sworn and the forgeries and the perjury. I mean, they were categorical that they did take notice of the fact that some of those the evidence that was adduced was actually not was fake, forgery.
Yeah, in fact, it is not only curious but disturbing that the Supreme Court found such a reality in the evidence, the affidavit evidence by the petitioners. It is not proper that the petitioners, believing in the weight of their case, would forge documents and produce the same before the court and hope to move the court. And so I think this calls for serious introspection on the part of the petitioners, especially the team of Honorable Raila Odinga. But beyond that, any future petitions challenging the presidential election results will necessitate that somebody or the team runs through whatever evidence that they have to be sure that they do not suffer the misfortune of being cited by the Supreme Court as bringing to it documents that are forgeries.
And as we bring this to a close, at the end of the day, this was an abridged version. So the judges will later, because of course of the time constraints, will later be able to do what they call the reasoning and how they came up to those conclusions, right?
Yes. Now, as Justice Martha Koome has indicated, that within 21 days, then they will deliver, they'll give the full judgment, which judgment now will provide the ratio of this decision. The ratio, legally speaking, is about the backbone of the decision of the court. What is it that made the court to reason and make a decision as it has? What is it that, on the part of the respondents, made it believe that the petitioner's case was weak and that it did not warrant the nullification of the presidential election results?
All right. And finally, Tuesday it should be the swearing in, right?
Yes, now President-elect William Ruto will be sworn in on the 13th, and now his regime begins officially from that time. But what's exciting, what's disturbing, what is curious is that what happens now with our politics, especially when it comes to matters public servants who engaged fully and took political sides, it has left a very bad taste in their mouth. And moving forward, I think public servants in Kenya will want to be very careful about how they engage in succession politics and the politics of the day.
Yeah, I know I keep saying finally, but do you see there being a purge? Because at the end of, as you said, this has been one of those, the president took aside state officers, we've seen them out there, and there's really bad blood for the last 4 years, and the president, of course, supporting Raila Odinga, and there was all of this, and so that now is coming, I mean, is over. There's a new president, and it's not the person they preferred.
I do not want to start imagining the kind of nightmares that the public servants who took sides are going to start having. And it's also not quite good for outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta, for whom that the man whom he hated the most in this election, now he has to give or surrender the instruments of power to him. It may also give some kind of pointers or barometer for future presidents who are leaving office to be very careful about how they try to manage their succession. Because I am sure that this has not and is not making President Uhuru Kenyatta feel nice about how he has managed his succession. But beyond that, I think that there are those who are so excited about the win and the decision of the Supreme Court, there are those who are not excited. The biggest challenge on the part of President-elect William Ruto now is to rise and be the president of all Kenyans, those who voted for him and those who did not vote for him. In fact, he must not demonstrate any bile against even public servants who were chastising him or calling him bad names or even belittling him. He must be extremely magnanimous now with this victory, now that has been affirmed by the Supreme Court. He is the president, and he must be particularly Solomonic, not just in the wisdom of governance, but the wisdom of politics of the day.
Well said, well said. He must rise above all of that all. Thank you so much, Javas. We appreciate it. And it's good to see you after a very long time. All right, Javas Bigambo with us here at the Supreme Court, where it is now emptying, literally. It was a flurry of activities, many lawyers as they left the proceedings, but now I can tell you it's just the media packing up as that 14-day timeline for the presidential election petition to be heard and dispensed with expired today, and there is a decision decision, and we await the swearing in of the 5th president, President-elect William Ruto, and Deputy President-elect Rigathi Gachagua. So I suppose the current residence of the Deputy President will continue being the Hustler's Mansion just now, with Rigathi Gachagua occupying it. But definitely this is one of those that there will be a lot of analysis, there will be a lot of feedback back and forth in as far as what it means going forward. But as I bring it back to you, Purity, as many of the legal minds we are talking to from this is the significance of this is that you had a unanimous decision, that the Supreme Court stood together on this one and you did not see dissenters. So that is the strength of it, and that's why you saw the presiding, and that's the president of the Supreme Court, Martha Koome, read it out. The abridged version, as you had there, in 21 days we'll have the reasoned comprehensive judgment. So of course a lot of activities around the country. I'll bring it back to you, Purity.
Thank you so much, Sophia. Right there at the Supreme Court of Kenya. And as she says, it was a unanimous decision to uphold the election of Dr. William Ruto as the 5th president of this country on this 5th day. Sophia says that the 55-year-old Dr. William Ruto becomes officially the 5th president of this country. We've been getting different reactions across the country, especially areas that had been considered strongholds of William Ruto, the ones that overwhelmingly supported him and voted for him overwhelmingly. But remember, it's a 50-50. It was almost a 50-50 affair, and therefore uniting this country will be the first assignment for Dr. William Ruto, even as he looks forward to his swearing in on Tuesday next week. Let's now get more reactions from across the country. We now want to cross over to Nakuru County, where Dalmas Sakali is, and just before we go there, I'll also be handing you over to Jesse Rogers after Dalmas Sakali from Nakuru County. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Purity Museo. For now, it's over to you, Dalmas.
Thank you so much. As our viewers can clearly see, of course, the pictures coming to you live from Nakuru City. This is Kenyatta Avenue, one of the, of course, most active and busy avenues here in Nakuru City. And people have come out in large numbers. Of course, as expected, Kenya Kwanza supporters from all walks of life who are here in this city to celebrate of course, the announcement, or shall I say the declaration by the Supreme Court upholding the victory announced by IEBC, declaring Dr. William Samoei Ruto to be Kenya's president-elect. As you all can see, dance after dance, celebrations after celebrations are ongoing here, and people have come out in large numbers carrying banners, of course, donned William Samoei Ruto, Hustler Movement, United Democratic Alliance, and what have you, in regards to the victory by Kenya Kwanza, of course, under Dr. William Samoei Ruto to be Kenya's the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya. Now, most of the people we've talked to, and we've been able to identify the same people that actually came out on large numbers when Dr. Ruto was declared the victor in the last general elections. As we've seen similar faces today, and they are in celebratory mood, celebrating and being, I would say, in so high spirits, of course, after the declaration by the Supreme Court. We also expecting a caravan, I will say, by Governor Susan Kihika, who has been a woman of the Kenya Kwanza lands in Nakuru County. We expecting Her Excellency Governor Susan Kihika and other leaders to also join in these celebrations. That explains why there's so many people here who are waiting to be joined by Her Excellency the Governor to celebrate this declaration. We actually following up proceedings, and I'm told celebrations are not just here along Kenyatta Avenue. There are celebrations around Nakuru City, and it's important to remember that Dr. Ruto garnered garnered a higher number of votes as compared to Azimio presidential candidate Raila Odinga in the last general elections, and of course that explains why the mood is such like it is here in Nakuru city. So we'll still continue following what will be happening, even as our viewers continue watching all these videos that are coming to you live from Nakuru city, and of course we'll also be expecting several presses from various leaders in Nakuru County who've been elected on the Kenya Kwanza Alliance or United Democratic Alliance as a party ticket in the last general elections. So basically that is it here. We really don't know when this is going to end, but of course, as it happened on 15th of August 2022, we expect this to go on and on and on and on for as long as it shall last. We shall remain here to follow what will be happening from Nakuru city. So from Nakuru city, Nakuru County, back to you in studio.
All right, Sakali, our man on the ground in Nakuru County. And as you can see, the scenes are characterizing the new city of Nakuru and in extension the whole county. Jubilation, even as the supporters of the president-elect William Ruto are gathering in the streets to celebrate that unanimous decision by the 7-judge bench of the apex court in the land, that's the Supreme Court. And we just had a resounding decision by the 7-judge bench. And of course, it sets in motion a couple of developments. It will be a busy 1 week as we wait for the president-elect and the deputy president-elect to be sworn in, which should be next week, Tuesday, following that unanimous decision by the Supreme Court to uphold the election of President-elect William Ruto in the 2022 general elections. And as you can still see on your screens, our camera lenses are trained in various regions across the country, not just Nakuru. We'll get a status update from various regions, including what political pundits may mention is not the political bastion of the president-elect. We'll get a feel of the disappointment or the acceptance as well from various regions, including Kisumu and Mombasa County. But as we can inform you right now, we understand the president-elect, William Ruto, is set to speak to members of the press and the country in general following that Supreme Court ruling. In just but a few, of course, we'll cross over live and bring you those updates in a way only we can. So do stay right here on KTN News. All right, so perhaps I can just take a look at some of the processes that we can expect now after the Supreme Court dismissed the petition by the petitioner, who was William Ruto's opponent, Raila Odinga, stating that Ruto was duly elected as a president-elect in the August 9th general election. Now, a series of activities will take place in the next 1 week ahead of the swearing-in ceremony that will see not just the president-elect William Ruto, but the deputy president-elect Rigathi Gachagua assume office officially. And in terms of the processes, we well know what the Constitution says, where the president-elect should assume office by taking and subscribing the oath of allegiance, the oath for execution, and the functions for office. Remember, he might have been voted in by a fraction of the registered voters who happen to be Kenyans, but remember, right now, he has an uphill task of ensuring he's a president of each and every Kenyan. Just as my colleague Spiriti Museo mentioned Sophia Wanuna a little bit earlier on, the election was a little bit too close to call in terms of the official numbers from the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Raila Odinga getting that percentage of roughly 49, or was it 48% thereabout, with Ruto getting the 50.4% of the vote. So William Ruto definitely and his administration have that task of bringing the country together, those who voted for him or not. And we had from the UDA Secretary General a little bit earlier on, Veronica Maina, that according to them as Kenya Kwanza, this will be a government for all, irrespective of who you voted for as a registered voter. So, of course, the clarion call still maintains peace should prevail, even though we've heard from the legal counsel, those who are representing the petitioner in the Supreme case. I'm talking about James Orengo, the Siaya governor, who mentioned that perhaps they accept the verdict, but they definitely have a couple of issues, and they are waiting for that whole ruling, the whole judgment from the 7-judge bench, which should be coming our way in roughly 21 days. And just to take you through some of the points that were highlighted by the 7-judge bench through the Chief Justice Martha Koome as they read their unanimous decision to uphold the election of William Ruto as the president-elect in the August 9th general election. These are some of the issues they highlighted before they got to the issues for determination. They mentioned how every cycle of elections is usually highly contested, except the 2002 elections, where the loser in that particular election, the outgoing president, Uhuru Kenyatta, conceded to the former president, the late Mwai Kibaki, who had won that election. Now, taking a look at what they highlighted in terms of the developments that happened on the 15th day of August, where it was dramatic scenes. According to the Deputy Chief Justice, Philomena Mwilu, she equated it to, kama drama, kama video, what we had in those memes that usually make rounds on social media. The scenes of some people who were disappointed with the developments happening at the National Tallying Center, the Bomas of Kenya. We saw a little bit of fracas, which ensued, and thereafter, Kenyans were fed to split screen of Chebukati on one side and some of the IEBC commissioners, the 4 IEBC commissioners led by the Vice Chair Cherera, who went to Serena to actually mention that the results were rather opaque. So following those developments on the 15th of August, that decision participated 9 petitions at the Supreme Court, where the petitions raised serious issues, hence were consolidated, and on a couple of issues that were set for determination. I just want to take you through them really fast, and I have them right here with me. Issues for determination, the very first one of them being whether the technology deployed by IEBC for the conduct of the August general election met the standards of integrity, verifiability, security, and transparency to guarantee accurate results. A lot was mentioned by Chief Justice Martha Koome, even though it was a summarized judgment, if I can call it that way. But in terms of whether the technology deployed was transparent and verifiable, they mentioned that perhaps in terms of simplicity, the KIMS kit sort of failed the test. That's one of the issues that they mentioned. But in general, according to the 7-judge bench, they were not convinced the technology failed. That's one of the issues they mentioned in terms of whether technology deployed by IEBC was verifiable, was secure and transparent. Those are some of the issues in terms of the technology that was deployed. Equally, voters' register was used without apparent anomalies, and Smartmatic was procured to provide infrastructure. These are some of the issues they were able to highlight, but trust us to inform you in our subsequent bulletins about the various issues they highlighted in their summarized judgment. Of course, we'll get the full judgment in 21 days, but these are the scenes characterizing Nakuru County, as you can see. Let's just listen in.